You spent weeks knitting that sweater. Now it's time to bind off, and you can't even wait to wash it. You want to try it on to see how it fits, only to discover it doesn't fit the way you wanted it to. What went wrong? Believe me, we have all been there. But how do those people that you see on Instagram and other social media platforms with those perfectly fitting sweaters, how do they do it? It comes down to one simple measurement that you're probably not even going to find in a knitting pattern. That's what we're going to discuss today. That upper torso measurement, what it is and why it's so important, and why you probably need it for your next sweater to make sure that it fits you just the way you want it to. Hey Nerdy Knitter, Tanya here. I'm a certified knitting instructor and a master hand knitter, and I want to help you knit garments that fit. Whether it's a sock or a sweater, you deserve to spend your time knitting garments that are actually going to fit you in the end and not waste your time on things that won't fit the way that you want them to. I have helped lots of knitters discover some key things when it comes to knitting sweaters, and I want to go over one of those things with you today. Actually two, but one key measurement that you need to consider, and also the biggest mistake that I see when it comes to choosing the right size, especially for women. I've seen this over and over again, and I want to help you avoid that. So we're going to go into that in this video, all about the things that you need to consider before you even cast on your sweater when it comes to choosing the right size, and what key measurement you need to take to make sure you're choosing the right size for your next sweater pattern. So let's start with the biggest game changer, and that would be your upper torso or upper bust measurement. Now, most knitting patterns are going to tell you to take that tape measure, measure around the fullest point of your bust, and choose a size based on that. And I'm here to tell you that that, in most cases, is wrong. We don't want that measurement. A better measurement to take for a sweater that's going to fit us well is that upper torso or upper bust measurement. Now, if you're using your full bust measurement and it's working for you, perfect. If you've used your full bust measurement and you get a sweater that's too big and sloppy and falling off your shoulders, you're the one who wants to consider that upper torso measurement. If you're only using that full bust measurement, that's where things start to go wrong right away with that very first measurement, because it's not accounting for the rest of the way your body is shaped. That can lead to sweaters that are too big and baggy in the top, or maybe even too tight in the shoulders, because you're using that full bust measurement instead of that upper torso measurement. Now, this upper torso measurement gives you a much more accurate picture of your skeletal frame and this part of your body through your shoulders and neck. You want a sweater that fits you well here, and using a full bust measurement often doesn't help you with fit issues here. What you need is that upper torso measurement. So to take that measurement, it's very simple. It's just like you would measure for your full bust, but instead of measuring around that full point of your bust, you're going to take that tape measure and go right up into your underarms as high as you can. It's actually better to have somebody else take this measurement for you. You're going to pull it all the way around, keep your arms down to your sides, and pull it snug. You don't want to like yank it super tight, but you want it to be pretty snug, and that is your upper torso measurement. And then while you're there, go ahead and take that full bust measurement, see what the difference is. How many inches different do you have between those two measurements? The bigger the difference, the more important it is to use that upper torso measurement as a guide when it comes to choosing a size. So what you're going to do with your next sweater pattern is use this measurement as your full bust measurement. Even though it's not your full bust measurement, most patterns are written for full bust. So you're going to take that upper torso measurement and use that as your full bust measurement. And then later on, you can make adjustments for your full bust, whether that's bust darts, horizontal or vertical, or other little things you can do to add some extra stitches so things will fit better across your full bust. But you can consider that after you've chosen that base size that's going to fit your frame more properly than choosing your full bust size would. Now, I want to address the people who need to really consider this upper torso measurement, and it's not just for people with a very full bust. Other people need to consider it as well. But before we do, I want to go back a little bit and talk about why we don't see this number in knitting patterns. So why don't patterns include this measurement? Well, that is starting to change. Occasionally I come across a newer pattern that asks you to take that upper torso measurement and consider that along with your full bust measurement, but that's still kind of the exception and not the rule. Most patterns are still going to ask you to take that full bust measurement and use that to choose your base size. But these patterns are all written for an average, a standard average body size, and most of us are not average. But the average they're using in this case is what they call a B cup. And that's not actually talking about your bra cup, it's talking about sewing standards, or it comes comes really from the world of sort of fast fashion, and it's sort of translated into knitting, and things haven't changed. We've kept them this way. But what that B cup means is they consider that to be a 2-inch difference between the upper torso and the full bust. They are assuming the average woman has a 2-inch difference. So if you have a 2-inch difference between your upper torso and your full bust, and if you grab that tape measure and measured, then hopefully you know what the difference is between those two numbers. If you are that B cup standard, knitting patterns are going to work just fine for you. Probably a C cup as well, which would be a 3-inch difference. You'd be fine. Knitted fabric stretches, so you're probably fine. If you are smaller than a B cup, so say there's just a 1-inch difference, you could still use this as well, but if you have broad shoulders, that's the other person who needs to consider that upper torso measurement, because you could be small busted but have broad shoulders, so you choose a size based on your bust and it's way too tight through the shoulders. That upper torso measurement is also important in that instance, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So the average pattern, or all of the patterns, they use this average. All of the standard body size charts that designers use, they are all based on this average, that there is a 2-inch difference between that upper torso and that full bust. If you are outside of that 2-inch difference, whether larger or smaller, then that's where things start to go wonky when you're trying to choose a knitting pattern, because it wants you to use that full bust, not considering the difference between like the width of your shoulders and your full bust, actually. Because that full bust measurement can fluctuate a lot when you're going through adolescence, when you're having babies, when you're getting older and gravity starts to take effect. When you buy a new bra, things are in a different place all of a sudden. All of these things affect where your bust is and how it's shaped. I mean, goodness, you can even change cup and band sizes and be in different bra sizes, and that can affect everything. And how are you supposed to knit a sweater based on that measurement that fluctuates so much? That's why we need that upper bust measurement, because that doesn't fluctuate very much. No matter how much weight you gain or lose, how much, your arm circumference changes, or your bust circumference, or your stomach, or anywhere else, this upper torso measurement, it'll change a little bit. You can get a little bit of extra fat there, but not like the fat you'd get in other parts of your body. So this measurement is key when it comes to good fit. So the measurement that doesn't change is this upper torso measurement. That's what we want to consider. Everywhere else, it can change, it can fluctuate. I've even heard people say that a designer recommended that they use the biggest part of their body, which was around their belly, to choose a size. And no, that is a terrible way to choose a sweater, because if it's much larger than your frame, you're going to get a sweater that is big and oversized and sloppy. You can make adjustments for bellies and butts and hips and busts and all of those places, but you want a sweater that's going to fit good here. And then it looks like it's a well-fitting sweater, and you can make it very oversized everywhere else if you want to. But it comes down to choosing the right size for a good fit through the shoulders and neckline first. And that's when that upper torso measurement is key. So now let's get into who needs to consider this measurement. Like I said, if you were that average B cup, there's a 2-inch difference between your full bust, your upper torso. I would say even 3 inches would be fine. Knitted fabric stretches, so you're going to be totally fine. But anyone else, you're going to want to look at this measurement. So that's a lot of people. I mean, it's more people than you would assume. But yes, a lot of people need to consider this number. But there are really 2 groups of people who want to consider this. First of all, are those people who are larger than a C cup difference. So that's a 3-inch difference. Every cup size adds an inch. So if your difference between your upper torso measurement and your full bust measurement is more than 3 inches, you want to consider this upper torso measurement when it comes to choosing a size. Now, the second group of people who need to consider this measurement are people with broad shoulders. Now, you might be wondering if you have broad shoulders, and I don't, and I didn't know how to figure this out either. So I asked one of my groups of knitters when we went through our coaching program how they knew they had broad shoulders. And the consensus was, if you go shopping and you choose something based on like your bust measurement, it's too tight in the shoulders. Or when you choose something that fits your shoulders, it's way too big through the rest of the body of your garment or whatever. So that's one way that you can check. If you always seem to run into that issue, then you might have broad shoulders. It means they're just wider than the average. If you wanted to be maybe a little more precise, you could go look at the Craft Yarn Council standard body size charts and look for what you think is your size in that chart, and then look at that shoulder to shoulder measurement and measure from your shoulder to shoulder and see if you fit within that standard or if they're wider. Those are two ways to sort of figure out if you have broad shoulders. So why is this important, this upper torso measurement? Because it comes down again to the variance between your bust and your shoulders. Let's say you have a very narrow or small bust, but you choose a sweater size based on that small bust. It probably is going to be way too tight in the shoulders. So that's why this upper torso measurement is key. You want to take this measurement and use that to choose a size so it fits your shoulders. And then you can do some decreases if you have a smaller bust to get a smaller, closer fitting size through the body. But those are the two groups of people, large busts and broad shoulders. You really want to consider this upper torso measurement. Now, that upper torso measurement is one of the key ingredients when it comes to choosing the right size, but there's a lot of other things you need to consider. Perhaps how the sleeve and the body fit together. Maybe you have a large upper arm, so you need to consider maybe the size you're looking at might fit your torso, but the arm is too tight. There's lots of things you can do to customize that fit, and that's something that we do in our Knits That Fit course. I've taught lots of knitters how to customize a top-down raglan and yoke sweater to fit their bodies, whether that's combining sizes on a raglan sweater or adjusting the bust on a circular yoke or adding waist shaping and bust starts and adjusting sleeve length. It's covered. All of it is covered in this course. So I'm going to put a link down below if you're interested in diving deeper into this topic on really getting a custom fit on your next top-down sweater. You'll want to check out that class. So the next step is, what do you do with this measurement? Now that you have it, now that you know the difference between your upper torso and your full bust, what exactly do you do with this measurement? You're going to choose your base pattern size. You can make changes for a full bust or a belly or arm circumference, all of that, after you've chosen a base size that fits that upper torso. So you get a sweater that fits really well through the shoulders, the neckline, all of this part up here. Get a good fit there. You can make changes and adjustments for the rest of your body. So it's kind of a two-step process. You have this upper torso measurement. You want to add some desired amount of positive ease. Now, we're not going to get into a whole big discussion about what ease is. It's basically the difference between the garment and your body, like the size of it. This sweater, positive ease. It's bigger than my body. A tight-fitting camisole, probably negative ease, so it really hugs your body and you can wear it underneath things. But you need a little bit of ease when you're considering this upper torso. You do not want negative ease here, or you're not going to be able to move. You need some movement through your shoulders. So a good base to start with is 2 inches. So take your upper torso measurement and add 2 inches at least, and that will give you some range of motion through here. Now you can add more if you want, and you can look at the pattern, look at the knitting pattern and see, does it tell you how much positive ease the sample, the person wearing the garment, how much positive ease they have in their garment? That doesn't mean you have to have that amount of positive ease. It's very common right now to have super oversized garments, which the larger you get, the more oversized, it just doesn't look good. You don't need as much ease as very small person. That's a personal opinion, but I am larger and I don't think I need as much ease as a size extra small to get sort of the same look. I can have less ease, but still get an oversized fit. I don't need 10 plus inches of ease. That's just way too much. But if you start with a base of 2, you need 2 inches of positive ease. So take that upper torso measurement and add 2 inches at least. But if you're looking at a specific design, go and look at the amount of ease in that garment that they recommend and see if you want to use that. There's no rule that says you have to have the same amount of ease. So now that you've taken your upper torso measurement and you've added your ease to it, so let's say your upper torso is 43 inches. You want 2 inches of ease, so 45 inches. You're going to take that number. 45 inches is your key here. And you're going to go look at the pattern at the finished measurement sizes, not at the body sizes. The body numbers don't really mean anything. It's just a way to keep everything organized in a pattern. Go to the pattern and look at the finished garment measurements, because that's what you want. If you want a garment that is 45 inches around, your 43 inch upper torso plus your 2 inches of ease, you want a garment that's 45 inches around at the upper torso, then go look through the finished garment measurements to find the size that correlates as closely as possible. You're probably not going to find one that's exactly the same size, but the one that is closest to that desired number. So that's going to be your base size. You can look at the rest of the schematic and start looking at the other numbers and compare them to your body measurements. So like your upper arm circumference, the length of the garment, all of these other numbers. But this is giving you a size to start with. It's going to fit you through the shoulders and neckline. That's really what you want. And then you can make adjustments. If you have to deal with like, well, let's say you're broad-shouldered and like have a narrow bust, then you can get it to fit here. If you're knitting, let's say you're knitting top down, then after you finish this part of the sweater, start working some decreases along the side so it'll bring it in a little bit through the body so it won't be as big as you want if you want it to be a little more narrow through the body. Now, if you have a full bust, you still want to use that upper torso measurement so you get that good fit here. Then you can do lots of things to adjust for a full bust. You can add vertical bust darts. You can do a short row horizontal bust dart. You can add extra stitches if you're casting on, like from the top down. There's a lot of things that you can consider. I have a whole video about like making some modifications for a full bust. But that's something to consider after you've chosen that base size. Then you can start playing around and getting a really custom fit everywhere else. But I do want you to think about also like a little negative ease at the bust is not a bad thing. It's not going to make your sweater super, super tight. So let's say you have a 4-inch difference between like your upper torso and your full bust. You might not have to do anything. Maybe after like if you're working top down, you finish like the top part, and you're working the body and the round, you could work a couple of increases at the sides to give you a little more length through the front if you want, or width through the front if you wanted to. But a little bit of negative ease just at the full bust is not going to make the whole sweater super skin tight. It's just in that one area where it might be a little tighter across the bust. But I encourage you to go try on some of your shirts and see, are they actually like they all super positive ease over the bust? Are any of them like fitted and they just kind of fit through the bust? It's all right to have a little bit of negative ease at that point. But by choosing this upper torso measurement, you are giving your sweater a good foundation to start with. So you're going to get a sweater that fits your frame much more nicely than you would if you chose something based on your full bust, especially if you have broad shoulders or a very full bust. Use this upper torso measurement to get the fit that you want for your next sweater. If the sweaters you've been knitting haven't been fitting you the way that you've wanted, it's not your fault. The standards and the way patterns are written today, they don't give us the right tools that we need to choose the proper size. And I want to help you change that. And now you have this key measurement, that upper torso measurement. That's your foundation for choosing the right size. But there are other things we could discuss. We could go further into ease or adding bust adjustments, things like that. So I've put together a short playlist that covers some of these topics that you might want to explore next. If you want to go deeper into this topic, I have a whole course that covers this specifically for top-down raglan and yoke sweaters. We cover everything from choosing that right base size based on that upper torso measurement, and then adjusting things based on arm circumference or bust shaping or waist shaping or adjusting sleeve length. We go over all of it in the Knits That Fit course. So you'll find a link for that down below this video, or if you want to go check out that playlist, then click right there and I'll see you in the next video.